Another day, another dollar.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
And you saw in the last videos of us driving the car at Grange, you could really hear the differential clunking around back there. So we found a couple of loose things. One, drive shaft was loose, and I think that was just rushing through it. That's fine, that's all tightened up. But also was hearing a large clunk noise that sounded a lot like a differential being loose. So we called up our buddies at CONDOR Speed Shop and we got a hold of some bushings. Let me show you what we got. So we got some subframe bushings and we also got some differential bushings. We're gonna be throwing these into the car, but this is one of the biggest upgrades you can do to your E46. A lot of guys have problems with their E46 subframes and their differentials and they're clunking around or they're doing something. I just realized I'm wearing the same shirt that I was wearing in the last couple of videos. Now it looks like I don't change my shirt.
Sponsored, bro. I got 6 of these.
I only have one. It's clean, I swear. E36, E46 chassis have issues with the subframes where they mount to the chassis, they'll crack. And a lot of the reason why they crack is aggressive driving with sloppy bushings. A lot of that slop creates movement, and the movement starts to work the metal that's on the chassis, and then it starts to crack. So if you can get to it before it cracks, you should be all right just throwing in some of these bushings. If you don't get to it before it cracks, they also sell reinforcement plates for the chassis. Also, depending on your grip levels and your horsepower levels and all that stuff, you might want to just reinforce the chassis. For instance, the Pro car, it's completely reinforced and has fresh bushings in it as well. On the ride-along car, the chassis is still fairly fresh. It's old, but it doesn't have a lot of mileage. It's only 50,000 miles. But the chassis hasn't had a lot of stress on it yet. So, with that being said, none of it's cracked or any of that stuff. So what we're gonna do is just throw some bushings at it. Again, relative to your horsepower and all those things and grip. We have no horsepower, no grip, so these will be sufficient for what we wanna do, and then we'll just get the diff stuff thrown in there and do all that. One issue you guys usually run into is, how do I remove the bushings? Couple of methods are burn the bushing out of the subframe, melt the bushing out of the subframe, or press it out of the subframe. Hugo here has just recently pressed. So you're gonna show us the press method, and then I'll show you the melt method, which is different than the burn method. I'll show you how it works, but let's go, you ready? Normally what it looks like is this, where you have bushing, subframe, and then there's a lip here on the bushing. So what we've done is we've gone oversized with this removal tool. That's a cup on the bottom side. It's essentially hollow, and this is like a little puck on the top. And so as he tightens it, it'll pull the bushing through the subframe. Let's see it.
So I guess we'll do it by hand.
Just do it by hand, huh? Yeah. That thing pops up. I don't understand. Harbor Freight, whatever. So as you tighten it, that rubber should start to go into. Oh, the mama is wet. It's getting heavy, my friend. Damn.
Can't remember if I heated it up. I might have heated it up too.
Did you heat it up also? So you're kind of doing the melt method along with the press. So what you're doing is you're heating up the metal sleeve, not to expand it, more so to melt the rubber that's on the inside. So over time, these bushings, they tend to become very attached to the metal. With the heat and all the different things that it goes through, it starts to like almost confuse itself against the metal. So what he's doing is essentially getting rid of those years of stickiness, if you will. There it is. So it's kind of like a combination trick. You got a little bit of the melt in there. Got a little bit of melt in there along with the press idea. So, is that hot?
A little bit.
Poquitos? Oh, a little bit. So this rubber, it's like, you can kind of see it. Like, if you put your thumb on it, kind of leaves behind a imprint. So that's the sticky layer that sticks to the subframe, and so you're essentially just heating that up and melting it, and then boom. So kind of clean, very clean, not kind of clean. It's a very clean way to do it. If you have a couple of tools and some other special stuff. Where did you find that, you said?
I want to say Amazon.
Amazon?
eBay. They both got it for sure.
So it's like OMT, Orion motor tech.
It's a bearing removal.
Bearing removal setup. Pretty legit. Works good, as you can see.
Yeah, it's not just for this.
No, you can use it for a lot of other things as well. But so now you have kind of a clean surface. You can see the melted rubber in there. So usually I would wire wheel that, but I'm kind of shying away from it because what I've seen is that I'll wire wheel it, throw bushings in, and then over time after driving it through like weather, that part of the subframe starts to rust or create rusty areas. Not like rust through or anything, but enough rust. That worked really good. That worked better than I thought it was gonna work. Now I don't even want to show them the melt method because now it's gonna be like, look at me with my hammer. So for the sake of showing you guys how to do it without having those tools, I'll do the melt one. So the burn method is burn the actual rubber out of here, which is really bad for you and toxic-y smelling, and it's really terrible. The melt method is just to melt the outer sleeve and then be able to smack this out with a hammer. So I'll show you that it's possible. I did my Pro car like that, but I'll show you it's possible with this one. You grab a hammer. Oh, broke out the inside. That's all right.
Yeah, it'll be still soft.
Yeah, still. Yeah, I can just get a flathead and do it. The biggest problem with this is like you start to damage like the edge. Like
just go off to here.
Yeah, I smacked the edge a couple times. So now the subframe's a little got like lips in it, which aren't that big of a deal, but just to like tell you kind of the problems with doing it this way. Ooh. So it'll totally work. It's just a little dirtier. Now this side of the paint that's on the subframe is going to be all toasted. Both ways work. We're going to go your route for the rest of these because
less.
Well, you're a lot less tired than me. My back.
My neck and my back.
My neck and my back. Yeah, so there it is. You can totally melt the outside and hammer it out. It works. It's just, as you can see, takes a little more effort and it's not as clean. So there's a bunch of rubber on the floor here from where I smacked and melted, and on that side there's nothing. So we'll stick to that side. Melt method. So we got all of them out. We had to do the melt method on these because the bolt from the press kit did not fit in it. So I'm glad I showed you that because you're gonna have to know how to use it because sometimes the press tools aren't gonna fit in certain areas or whatever, but that's how we had to do it. We actually did the fronts with the melt method, these two, and that one as well. The back bushing one we pressed, and then there's a metal sleeve that was left behind and we had to just slowly chisel at the metal sleeve, and essentially if it's round like this, we fold it over the edges and then smacked it all the way through. Somewhere here. Oh, here you go. That's what we did to it. So just folded the edges and then smacked it through. But yeah, those bushings are all out and dead. It's time to install some new Condor stuff. So you have a couple of bushings that they're going to send you. The instructions say very clearly the thick side is the top side and the thin side is the bottom side. Now how you're going to differentiate the front from the rear is going to be this cutout here. This little relief area in here is where the stud nut, I guess you can call it, the stud nut sits on the chassis. So this goes that nut that's on that stud on the chassis sits right into this little hole area. So this is going to be your front one, and then that one there, and then this is going to be your rear one. Again, thick side, top side, thin side, bottom. So let's throw these in. Hit is the hardest part about doing stuff on a channel, is that most of the time you gotta work with one hand. Oh my gosh, it's so easy. I just did it with one hand. There you go. There you go. Okay. Should be easier. Oh yeah, by far. And the sleeve, that's got a side specific on it, right?
Yeah, it goes from the bottom.
Shoulder from the bottom up.
It goes in one way. It's flush.
Oh my god. There it is. Voila. The CONDOR is a special. Oh, there they are. All the subframe ones are done. Hannah's here. Magically showed up. She's smiling because she got the tail end of that magic trick. Pretty cool magic trick. Make your bushings install and a hot chick appear. So I'm pretty good. Houdini, bitch. All right, so those are in. We're gonna have to wait till tomorrow to do the diff ones. But anyway, you're not gonna know that I went to bed and then I probably pooped and did a couple other things, and me and Hugo probably went and got tacos in between the next shot. You won't know any of that stuff. You'll just see us installing the diff ones.
Yep.
Bada boom. Yeah.
I'm outside playing with Hugo. I told you that, Mom. All the bushings are now in. It's time to just wrap up a few things, throw this thing in the car, bolt up a few more things, bleed some brakes, and then, as my good friend Hugo would say, vamonos. I don't think I've ever heard you say vamonos before.
Vamonos.
Vamonos. There it is. See, I told you he says that stuff.
Pretty sick little setup. 2 dollies and the jack, huh? Just roll the whole subframe back in there. So the hardest thing I think is going to be getting those e-brake cables back in there. All right, so the whole rear end is back in the car. Colt is still in the way, as always, but all those beautiful white bushings in there. Condor equipped. We shouldn't be hearing the differential knock around anymore.
Last thing we need to do is go get some brake fluid.
I don't even know what we left off on filming because I'm a terrible
Vlogger? Videographer?
documenter. Don't know. Car's back on the floor. It's a little late though, so we'll go on a test drive another day. What do you say?
Yeah.
All right, boys. Thank you, Hugo. As always.
You're welcome.